Everyone, it's JMA Friday, so we're going to have a look at the month-ahead forecast from the Japanese models, see what that's showing for March, taking us right way through the coming month through March. Then we'll have a look at the nearer range models, see what they're showing for next week, and then finally we'll end up having a bit of a look with the CFS model to what that's showing for March and April as well. So a bit of a long range look ahead today. Now, before I get on with the video, I just want to talk about the advertising. There's video ads on my pages at gazworthvids.com. If you press play on the video ad, you'll be supporting gazworthvids.com. Thanks very much for doing that. Also try out some content ads underneath the video player. They're links to pages that have very interesting articles. I've read some of those articles actually over the last day or so. Some very interesting pieces there. So if you're interested in any of those articles, just click through the links. You'll go to the website where you'll be able to read the articles, and you'll be supporting gazworthvids.com at the same time. So it's several ways of getting involved with website and supporting GazWebVids. Thanks very much. It does make a big difference to help pay for the website. So thanks very much for doing that. So it's a damp old day today. We've got outbreaks of rain, mainly light rain across England and Wales, but there are some heavier bursts mixed in, some winteriness over the high ground, but not really the snow event that you may have been expecting if you've been reading it in the papers. I was always a bit dubious about it, and indeed it appears that basically away from elevation there's not much snow going on. Of course, it's a fittingly wet end to the winter, last day of winter day, meteorologically. Anyway, it's meteorologically questionable, to be honest, because you can get wintry conditions through March and April, as we saw spectacularly last March, actually. But it's useful when dealing with the statistics. So today is officially the last day of winter, or statistically the last day of winter, and we're ending on a damp note. It's been the wettest winter across central England on record, going back to 1766. It's been the wettest UK winter for the UK as a whole on record. Record's only going back to 1910 there, though. And I've just heard today from a correspondent who's emailed me, Clive, his email to tell me that for England and Wales, we've now beaten 1960 into the third wettest season, not just winter but season, on record, although we are still a long way short of the all-time wettest season, which was the autumn of 2000. So an exceptionally wet winter, horrible winter this one has been, horrible for anybody who likes cold and snowy weather, horrible winter for anybody who doesn't like being rained upon. Let's see what's going to happen as we move through into spring, and we've got the 500 metre height anomalies from the JMA model here. What you need to know first of all is that British Isles is upside down, but we're just there. This is broken down into weekly periods. Blue indicating below average heights, that's low pressure, yellow and orange indicating above average heights, that's high pressure. So for the first week period, which will be taking us more or less through the first week of March, it's the 27th to I think the 7th of March, and we're under the blue colours here across the British Isles, so we've still got a trough of low pressure around for much of the coming week. It will still be relatively unsettled, but I think this is skewed by the earlier part of the week. I think as we go through to the second half of next week, we should start to find some high pressure coming in, but that's still a pretty unsettled anomaly for the first few days of March. But look at this as we get through to the second weekly period, which takes us more or less through the second week of March. Well, then we've got the yellow and orange colours appearing around the British Isles, a nice trough of high pressure, ridge of high pressure I should say, setting up across the country. The trough of low pressure is being pushed off up to the north, high pressure definitely building up from the south and the southwest. That's a very nice anomaly, will be away from northern Scotland anyway, mainly dry with really quite decent temperatures because the wind is coming in off the Atlantic from quite a mild source in the Atlantic. So yeah, that's a dry, mild, spring-like sort of pattern for the second week of March. I think we could start to set that up actually later on next week. And as we go through to the third and fourth weeks of March, we find that the pattern becomes a little bit more typical then. We take the high pressure down to the south, so it's set up around the Azores. We've got the low pressure to the the north and the northwest of Scotland. Really, a jet stream through more or less across the country, so that's very typical sort of March weather, to be honest. It wouldn't be particularly cold, but it's not particularly warm. We'd be bringing some unsettled conditions through at times, particularly to the north and west, less unsettled to the south and the southeast. Very much average, typical sort of early spring conditions, nothing out of the ordinary about that. But certainly the second week of March, anyway, on this is looking very, very nice. Let's have a look at the generic charts. It's for GFS for the start of next week, bringing low pressure through across the country. So it will still be unsettled. We saw that on the JMA height anomalies, and it'll be unsettled at the start of next week. But as we go through the week, we're going to find high pressure building up to the south very on Thursday the 6th, a ridge of high pressure setting up from the Azores in towards France. The low pressure starting to be pushed away to the northwest. As we get through to Friday the 7th, well, there we go, high pressure is taking over to the south and the southeast of the country. Still unsettled up to the north and northwest of Scotland, but many areas will be dry by the end of next week. Really quite mild as well. Temperatures will be at least into the low teens, possibly into the mid-teens, although it could be chilly at night. Here are the temperatures forecast for Friday the 7th of March, a week away. And we're seeing temperature predictions there, anything up to 13, 14, 15 degrees. That's very, very nice spring-like weather, up into the mid to upper 50s Fahrenheit, around the 60 Fahrenheit mark, perhaps from one or two places. Really nice weather as we go through to day 10, which is Monday the 10th of March. The high pressure is still there, more or less over the top of the country, so still keeping it mainly dry away from northern Scotland, with a good deal of very pleasant spring sunshine. Here's the temperatures again for Monday the 10th, and we're again up to around the mid-teens, 14, 15. This is suggesting the possibility of 16 degrees, 61 Fahrenheit. So very nice, very nice weather coming up towards the end of next week and into the second week of March, if this is correct. What about the ECMWF does bad agree? Well, we start next week on that unsettled note with the low pressure. But as we move through the week, does the high pressure build up? Well, it sort of does, but it takes longer to get there, particularly for the north. I think for the south it does dry out and turn milder through the second half of next week, but for the north it's still quite unsettled actually on this. It takes a long while to really get there. Nevertheless, by the time you get through to day 10, Monday the 10th of March, the high pressure is building up there across the country, though it's still relatively unsettled for northern and northwestern Scotland. But for England and Wales, that would still be very nice, very pleasant spring-like conditions, mainly dry, sunny spells and temperatures into the low to mid-teens, although potentially chilly at night. And the GM rounds it all off by day 10, Monday the 10th of March. There's the high pressure more or less sitting over the country, so there's very good evidence that the patterns are on the change next week. We start off on an unsettled note, but we turn it much more unsettled through the we turn it much more settled through the week. So by the time we get through to the weekend of the 7th, 8th, 9th of March, we're looking at a lot of dry weather and really quite spring-like conditions. What does the CFS from the United States show happening for March and April finally? This is the 500 millibar height anomaly, the latest one from the website webweb.net for March, and you can find a link to WebWeb on my links page. It's actually centering a trough of low pressure over the country, so the idea there is that any change to drier anticyclonic sort of high pressure dominated conditions probably wouldn't last that long. We're quite quickly in the second half of the month go back to a trough of low pressure. That's not a particularly inspiring anomaly for March, and quite surprising actually on the basis of what we're looking at this morning. I think there has to be some question marks about that, but it could turn a good deal more unsettled in the second half of March. It could just be we're going to have a finer spell of weather that won't last too long. Here's the anomaly that it's seeing for April, and again it's this idea that we've got high pressure setting up to the north. This time it's centering in around Iceland, troughs of low pressure to the south and the southeast. That's not particularly wet, but it is quite a cold anomaly. That high pressure would be bringing in winds from a north or northeasterly direction, and this is something that we're seeing very regularly on the CFS model. This idea that April will be a colder month. It could well be that April is our first below average month of 2014. Of course, it's been a very warm start to the year. just keep an eye on it, because I think the CFS definitely is picking up on this idea that it's going to be a colder April, with high pressure centred more to the north and the northwest of the country. But of course, just because that's what the CFS is suggesting doesn't at all mean that's what's going to happen. These long range models are very experimental, and we're just going to have to wait to see on that. But coming back to the nearer time frame, it does look as though finally we're going to get some pleasant weather. We start next week on 7, but I think the evidence is very good this morning that through the week we're going to build high pressure up from the south, and potentially turn it very spring-like by the end of next week, and into the weekend of the 8th and the 9th of March, and on potentially into the second week of the month. So good news really if you're wanting some spring-like weather. Looks like it's on the way. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.